Do not call the police. That's what the chilling voice on the phone commands when you find a man dying in an alley. He's wearing a suit that costs more than your life, and his wallet only has one gold card. For emergencies only, call. Within 4 minutes, 3 black SUVs surround you, and the city's most dangerous mafia boss steps out to claim his bleeding son. You just broke your #1 rule about strangers, and now you belong to the mob.
Let's kick off this absolute madness. You and I are stepping into the gritty streets of a city that refuses to sleep. Picture our girl Emma, phone clamped to her ear, street lights buzzing overhead. She tells the mystery guy, "Your boy is bleeding out on 5th Street. I don't know who you are, but this card says emergency." What follows is 3 seconds of heavy silence, not the panic of a normal death, but the dead quiet of a mob boss swallowing tragedy. Then a freezing voice drops the hammer. Do not call the cops. Do not move him. Do not say a single word. A smart person hangs up, but not Emma. The biggest life lesson here? Knowing when to walk away can save your life, but she completely missed the memo. Welcome back to the channel. Drop your city below, and let's go. Our girl Emma survived by one absolute rule regarding sketchy, dark alleys. You never ever stop. It wasn't because she was cold-hearted. She'd spent her entire life pouring her soul into empty cups that never gave anything back. Grinding the late shift at a diner for 12 years gives you street smarts you can't buy. She knew how to spot the difference between someone needing a hand and a trap that would ruin her. That's a solid life lesson for us all. Guard your peace before someone steals it. But tonight, the universe flipped the script. When she spotted this guy face down on the wet asphalt, reaching out like he was begging for a second chance his time ran out on, her ultimate survival rule just totally vanished into thin air. Guys, it was the suit that stopped her dead in her tracks. We're talking custom-tailored, dripping with the kind of crazy old money that absolutely doesn't belong in this rundown zip code. Emma knew rich when she saw it. Her shift ended 11 minutes ago. She only had $16 in tips shoved in her apron and some sad leftover soup waiting at home. But suddenly, getting back to her boring life just didn't matter. "Hey, can you hear me?" she yelled out to the guy. Nothing. Complete silence. She dropped to her knees, right in a freezing puddle, and pressed 2 shaky fingers to his neck. It was the exact same move her mom taught her after her dad had a massive heart attack. It was the brutal moment Emma learned what absolute terrifying helplessness really felt like. Boom, a pulse. It was barely there, stumbling like a guy walking blind in the dark, but bro was alive. "Okay, you're still hanging on," she whispered into the freezing mist. She rolled him over, and that's when the massive reality check hit. Thick, dark blood was pouring from beneath his stupidly expensive jack and it, turning his white shirt into a horror movie. Her stomach totally dropped. This wasn't some random drunk guy taking a spill. A monster did this to him on purpose. "I need to make a call," she muttered, pulling out her phone and punching in the numbers for the cops. But then she just froze. It wasn't logic. It was that raw, primal survival instinct screaming from deep inside her bones. The ultimate warning system telling you a heavy hitter is still lurking nearby. Stick with me here, because you and I need to see this exactly how Emma saw it. She stared at the insane amount of blood. The alley wasn't just empty. It felt totally wiped clean, like someone specifically cleared the area for a mob hit. She put her phone away. Instead, her shaky handclaws dug into his jacket. Desperate to figure out who this guy was, she yanked out a thick wallet and found his driver's license. Ethan Sullivan, 34 years old. Bro lived in a neighborhood so rich the doorman probably wore designer suits. And then the crazy piece of the puzzle dropped. A tiny, heavy card slipped out of the leather, landing right in the nasty puddle by her knees. Sometimes, The answers we're looking for are the ones that end up dragging us straight into the underworld. This card was totally wild. No company logo, no business name. Just one single phone number, sheening gold ink, straight up like a giant red flag, looking straight up like a giant red flag. Under it were just 4 tiny words. For emergencies only. Call. Emma stared at this bleeding Mafia. It rang exactly 2 times. It rang exactly 2 times. Who is this? A voice barked. No hello, no panic. Just a freezing cold demand that sounded completely empty of human emotion. It was like a ruthless judge handing down a death sentence before the trial even started. But Emma found this crazy surge of guts. My name is Emma Turner, she snapped back. I found a work at Murphy's Diner on 5th. I found a man completely knocked out in the alleyway right behind my building. His name is Ethan Sullivan, she told him, trying to sound tough while her voice shook. It's on his driver's license. He's bleeding really badly. And I just needed someone to know. The silence that hit back was surgical and absolutely terrifying. How long ago did you find him? The voice demanded. 3, maybe 4 minutes ago, Emma fired back. She pressed her hands into the wound, fighting off pure panic as the heat of his blood soaked her skin. It's super bad. He needs an emergency room right now. Then the voice dropped the absolute coldest line of the century. He will not be going to a hospital. The words slammed shut like a massive steel vault. You will not move him, and you will not speak a single word to anyone. Bro wasn't asking. He was commanding an absolute cover-up. Look, this is where the big life lesson drops. You can always judge a person by the secrets they desperately try to hide. Normal people don't tell you to dodge the cops unless the cops are exactly who they're hiding from. You don't have an elite cleanup crew ready at 3 in the morning unless your entire life is an active war zone. Every single alarm bell in Emma's head told her to run for her life. Am I clear, Miss Turner? The terrifying voice asked. Yes, you're clear, she breathed out. But here's the craziest part that kept her up at night for years. The boss didn't hang up the phone. He left the line wide open. He didn't say a single word. Bro just sat there, standing, guard over the dead silence like a grim reaper watching a tomb. It was absolute madness, like this guy had spent his whole life perfecting the dark art of weaponized silence. Emma was just stuck kneeling on the freezing pavement, listening to the heavy breathing of a literal phantom on the phone, trying to keep Ethan from bleeding out. Then, exactly 1 minute and 40 seconds later, Bro snapped awake. He didn't just groan and flutter his eyes. He launched up violently. No confusion at all. He woke up like a hardcore mercenary who knew sleeping on the job meant death. His eyes scanned the dark alley before locking onto Emma with a crazy intensity. Don't move, she told him, trying to keep her cool. You're wrecked. Help is coming. Who? He gasped out, his voice cracking through the dark like broken glass. Bro forced himself to swallow, literally choking down the agony. Who did you call? He demanded, panicking. I called the number on your shiny card, she whispered back. Guys, the change in Ethan's face was completely terrifying. The shock vanished, replaced by this massive wave of pure dread and total defeat. It was the exact look of a guy realizing the monster under his bed just grabbed his ankle. His arm shot up, grabbing her wrist like an absolute steel bear trap. How long ago? He growled. 2 minutes, she stuttered. Did the big man answer it himself, or was it someone else? He answered it himself, Emma replied. Ethan just shut his eyes, his jaw locking up. He was accepting his dark fate. Okay, he breathed out, sounding like a dead man walking. Listen to me extremely carefully, Ethan whispered, sounding deadly serious. I'm listening, she told him. In exactly 2 minutes, a convoy of cars is going to roll up in here. You're going to see some very scary dudes, and they're going to do some truly messed up things that'll terrify you. He forced his heavy eyes open, staring a hole right through her. "But you absolutely cannot look scared, do you get it? Can you do this? Yes or no?" Emma just locked eyes with him. Honestly, dealing with aggressive drunks and the midnight trashy for 12 years gives you a serious backbone. She knew exactly how to shove her fear down deep. "Yes, I can." "He can," she told him. He gave this slow, heavy nod. The ultimate life lesson here: never underestimate a late-night worker. "I'm so incredibly sorry you were the one who found me," he whispered, looking wrecked. But before Emma could even open her mouth, blinding headlights ripped through the dark alley. 3 massive, blacked-out vehicles with 0 license plates rolled up smoothly. These guys moved with this chilling, hyper-coordinated rhythm, sliding out like a pack of wolves cornering a deer. Huge, terrifying men poured out into the rain without making a sound. They swarmed right over Ethan, completely acting like Emma didn't even exist. They threw these silent hand signs that she couldn't even read. Finally, one of these absolute units turned his dead, empty eyes right at her. "Step back," he ordered. It wasn't a request. It was a threat with absolutely 0 room for debate. Emma backed up slowly as a 4th ride rolled in. This one was different, a massive armored beast. The older guy who stepped out had this insane boss energy that made the entire block feel heavy. Silver hair catching the rain, wearing an expensive trench coat like he rushed out of bed. His eyes, hot, locked entirely onto his bleeding son. And right you and I could totally see the truth slipping out. Just for a split second, it was the raw, brutal agony of a father realizing his own violent mob life just destroyed his kid. Then the legendary Vincent Sullivan locked all that pain away in a vault. He walked over and pressed a shaking hand to his boy's face. It was such a heavy, heartbreaking scene that Emma literally had to look away. Absolute cinema. Listen up, because you and I both know the look of sheer panic. Emma is backed into a dirty alley trying to play it cool, telling the literal boss of the underworld she is perfectly fine. But guys, her eyes are screaming a completely different story. Vincent Sullivan is dominating the space. He moves with his terrifying, calm energy, like a predator who already won. He looks at her and says he knows she is the one who made the phone call. How could he not? It is his business to know everything. The lesson here is simple. You can never hide your true fear from someone who reads people for a living. They see right through the mask. Vincent just stands there, sizing her up like she is a contract he is about to sign. He is looking for every single flaw. Emma refuses to break, holding on to the words Ethan whispered to her earlier, using that tiny bit of defiance as armor. Then Vincent drops the heavy question, demanding to know what his son said when he woke up. It is a massive pressure test, the kind that makes or breaks you. Emma looks him dead in the eye and says Ethan just asked if she was okay. The mob boss is genuinely stunned by that answer. You know, true courage is not about being fearless. It is about standing your absolute ground when everything inside you says to run away. The tension is through the roof. Vincent asks if that was really all his son said. Emma does not flinch. She says that was it. Complete silence drops over the alley. Then you see this crazy shift in Vincent. It is not warmth, but absolute respect. He realizes this random waitress is actually telling him the raw truth. He flat out tells her that his son is alive because of her, and that is a debt he will never forget. Emma fires back that she did not do it for the clout. Doing the right thing when nobody is watching is the ultimate flex of character, and it just earned her major points with the most dangerous man in the city. For a split second, the boss actually shows a hint of genuine understanding. He quietly agrees that she did not do it for the reward. Then he turns around and his guys sweep in like a highly trained ghost unit. In a flash, the ambulance is packed, the street is scrubbed, and it is like nothing ever happened. He tells Emma to go home and that someone will reach out. But right before she leaves, he drops this cold truth bomb. He tells her that if you run, the predators will chase you down, but if you walk, they just might let you live. Panic always makes you a target, but keeping your cool gives you total control over your own survival. Picture this. She has to walk 6 agonizing blocks back to her apartment, her legs feeling like absolute lead. The silence of the city is practically suffocating her. She finally gets inside, locks the door, and collapses on the couch. The microwave clock glows 2:49 in the morning. Barely 30 minutes have passed, but she feels 10 years older. You and I know that heavy sea-sinking feeling of pure shock. Then her phone vibrates. It is an unknown number. She answers, and it is Vincent, calling in the dead of night just to make sure she got home safe. Sometimes the very trouble you are trying to escape is already waiting for you in your safe space. A total freeze runs down her spine. She asks him how he knew she was inside. Vincent calmly replies that he calculated her walking speed and the timing matched up. Bro literally timed her walk home. She confirms she is inside. Then he drops the hook. He says his son wants to thank her properly, and he expects her to agree. Every single instinct in Emma's brain is screaming at her to refuse, to stay far away from these people. But out of sheer survival instinct, she hears herself say yes. Realizing you are completely out of your depth is often the first real step to surviving, a game you never actually wanted to play. She is officially trapped. Before he hangs up, Vincent adds one last thing. He tells her he chose to believe her story about his son, and asks if she understands the difference between that and a request. Guys, this is not an invitation to tea. This is a direct command from a kingpin. She totally understands that Mz's Mavdet has just been tied to her name, and she has zero say in the matter. She tells him she understands the terms. You and I both know about these brutal crossroads. Every single choice we make carries a hidden price tag, even the ones we make out of pure, selfless kindness in a dark alley. She is in their world now. They exchange good nights, and the call clicks off. The silence that follows is absolutely deafening. Her cold coffee and untouched soup are sitting there, mocking her old, boring life. She stares down at her shaking hands, the exact same hands that just held a dying man together and took a business card from a crime. And totally safe. She had been perfectly happy, being invisible and totally safe. But as the clock hits 3 in the morning, the reality sets in. Her quiet life is officially burned to the ground. Listen, you can never unring a bell. Once you step out of your comfort zone and see the dark side, you can never go back to being ordinary. The craziest part is that she is not even asking herself what she just did. The only thing keeping her awake is the terrifying question of what happens next. And the worst part? She is absolutely going to find out. So what does she do? She goes straight to her morning shift at the diner. Instead of packing a bag and fleeing the state, she is at work by 6:45, brewing cheap coffee. You and I have probably done the exact same thing in a crisis. When your entire world gets flipped upside down, sticking to your boring, everyday routine is sometimes the only anchor you have left to keep yourself from completely losing your mind. She is standing behind the counter, filling the coffee machine, trying her hardest to pretend Vincent Sullivan does not exist. Yet she manages to hold it together until exactly 9:17 in the morning. Then a massive black luxury car rolls up right outside the diner window. It does not even park. It just sits there, idling with pitch-black tinted windows. Emma is so distracted, she ends up spilling coffee all over a regular customer's cup. The universe loves to mess with us like that. Ignoring a problem does not make it magically disappear. It just gives that problem enough time to pull up and park right outside your front door. She tries to convince herself it is just a random car, but her gut knows better. Right before noon, her phone buzzes again, another unknown number. She hides in the back room and answers. It is not Vincent this time, but a super smooth professional voice. The guy introduces himself as Daniel, working for the Sullivan family, and casually confirms a meeting time for 3 o'clock. Emma panics and tries to pull the worker car, saying her shift does not end until 3. The lesson for today is brutal. Absolute power does not ask for permission. It dictates the schedule. You have to learn when to fold your hand and just play along. Daniel does not even flinch. He just politely repeats that a car will be there at 3, completely immovable. Emma is standing in the greasy back hallway of the diner, staring at her screen like it is a bomb. So she just goes back to wiping down tables. Sometimes the only way to handle an incoming disaster is to just take one blind step forward. The clock hits 2 napkin holders. She is refilling napkin holders, totally on edge. Then the bell above the front door chimes, and a man steps inside. The anticipation of a threat is often way worse than the event itself, but you still have to turn around and face whatever is coming. She turns around expecting the worst, but the guy walking in is not Ethan. It is a stone-cold businessman with razor-sharp eyes and a perfectly tailored suit. This is Daniel, the guy from the phone. Checking the perimeter like a hawk, he scans the entire diner, assessing every single threat level before making a move. It is the undeniable look of a point of no return. The second this guy walked into her workplace, her normal reality shattered. Sometimes you just cannot choose your own path. Life throws a heavy hitter straight through your front door, and you just have to brace yourself for the absolute chaos that follows. But wait, Daniel was just the opening act. Right behind him, making the air in the diner feel 10 times heavier, is the main event. It is Ethan Sullivan. And guys, he is not bleeding out in a rainy alley anymore. He is terrifyingly whole, looking like money and danger mixed together. His dark eyes lock onto Emma with dead certainty. He casually mentions that he is a bit early. That is the funny thing about real power. The ones who actually hold it never have to yell to be heard. We always judge people by their weakest moments, but survival means recognizing the quiet, lethal danger when it casually strolls up to your counter. Emma is standing there, painfully aware of how ridiculous she looks. She has stale coffee smells clinging to her hair and a massive grease stain on her sleeve. She is totally unequipped to face this Mafia prince. Without even asking for his permission, she tells him to give her 5 minutes and just walks away. She tells her boss she has a family emergency, keeping her voice completely steady while ripping off her apron. We all build these tiny invisible armors. When a chaotic situation catches you completely off guard, the absolute bravest thing you can do is take a minute to wash your face, take a deep breath, and remember exactly who you are. She locks herself in the tiny employee bathroom and stares at her exhausted face in the cracked mirror. She whispers that she is fine, even though she knows it is a massive lie. But here is the wild part. When she finally steps back out into the diner, Ethan does something crazy. He actually stands up from his stool to greet her. It is this old-school show of respect that completely catches her off guard. He tells her he showed up because he wanted to, not because he was ordered to. We spend so much time running from our worst fears. But the biggest personal growth happens when we force ourselves to walk right back into the fire. She drops onto the stool next to him because her tired feet are totally done with pretending to be brave. She looks at him and asks about his insane injuries, the cracked ribs and the stitches. Ethan just waves it off like it was a paper cut. But Emma is not having it. She softly tells him that he looked like he was straight up dying. A dark shadow crosses his face because he knows she is right. She saved him and lied to his scary father all in one night. Life rarely gives us a heads up before testing our limits. The absolute truest measure of who we are is how we handle ourselves when the pressure is heavy enough to crush us. That word just hangs in the air between them. Lied. Ethan does not try to sugarcoat it at all. Emma instantly gets defensive, claiming she just withheld the facts. But Ethan grew up in the mob. He knows that skipping details is the exact same thing as lying. He tells her to relax because he is not mad. He actually watched her in that alley, weighing the massive risks before choosing to protect him. She did not freak out. She calculated her move. Trusting your gut in a high-stakes moment is the ultimate survival tactic. It shows a deeply buried strength that proves you are way more dangerous than anyone ever gave you credit for. Listen up, because this is where the tension totally spikes. Emma has been grinding away at midnight shifts for 12 whole years. Dealing with unhinged customers and wild nights gave her this insane buff to outpace her own panic. Sitting across from her, Ethan softly nods, totally relating, though his survival practice came from a much bloodier arena. They are sharing this crazy, heavy silence that only two trauma survivors feel when they finally see the sun come up. She asks him, super carefully, if the ambush was random street violence, even though her gut is screaming the real answer. Here is a truth bomb. Sometimes we ask questions not because we want the real answer, but just to buy ourselves a few more seconds of peace before the ugly truth completely shatters our world. Ethan does not even blink, absolute ice in his veins. He confirms the hit was ordered by someone deeply embedded in his Mafia family's protocols. He locks eyes with her, and you can see he is low-key impressed. Emma actually figured it out. She realized that making that phone call was the actual trap, designed to yank his father out of position. It proves the enemy completely understands the Sullivan Syndicate's inner workings. Ethan sets his coffee mug down with this terrifying, calculated precision. It is a tough pill to swallow, but true danger almost never comes from random strangers hiding in dark alleys. The absolute worst, most devastating betrayals always come from the exact people who have spent years memorizing the floor plan of your own safe house. Ethan flat out admits she is totally different from what he expected. He was banking on a trembling, broken mess, but Emma drops a brutally honest truth bomb on him. She tells him she is absolutely terrified, running on pure adrenaline since 2:17 in the morning, but she absolutely refuses to let panic control her expression right now. Hearing that, the invisible, untouchable armor around our Mafia boy actually fractures, just for a split second. You see the raw, damaged human soul trapped beneath all that Sullivan family machinery. Then, boom, the ultimate plot twist drops. The Don wants to see her again tonight. We try so hard to look unbreakable, but honestly, real bravery is not about being fearless. Courage is being completely terrified, but refusing to let fear take the wheel. Emma literally freezes in her tracks. She shoots back that she already met the big boss in a blood-soaked alley at 3 in the morning. But Ethan just holds her gaze and explains that was basically just a quick field test. Tonight is the real deal. Tonight is formal. The Don wants to thank her, sure, but mainly, he wants to totally dissect her. Ethan is picking his words so carefully here because he knows they carry a lethal weight. His dad needs to decode the brain of a woman crazy enough to keep secrets from a Mafia kingpin. Listen, we are ultimately defined by the choices we make when absolutely nobody is looking. But sooner or later, the world is going to drag you into the light, and you better be ready to stand your ground when that spotlight finally hits you dead in the face. Emma looks around at the supernormal cozy vibe of the diner. The espresso machines humming, old Mr. Delgado chilling with his newspaper at table 3, the cooks yelling in the back. It is this perfectly ordinary life that is about to be completely swallowed by the underworld. She asks the ultimate question. What if she just straight up rejects the invite? Ethan drops his voice, totally serious now, and tells her she can refuse. But his dad will absolutely fill that silence with his own paranoid, deadly theories. You cannot just close your eyes and pray the hurricane misses your house. Trying to avoid a problem is still making a choice, and sometimes dodging the conflict is the exact move that paints a massive target on your back and draws the lightning straight to you. Emma instant translates that Mafia logic. Leaving a paranoid boss like Vincent to imagine things is a literal death sentence. She whispers that it is not a real choice at all, and then this totally unhinged, genuine laugh bursts out of her. It is that pure, helpless laughter you only get when a situation is so absurd, your brain just blue screens. Ethan just stares at her, completely mind-blown by her chaotic energy. They lock in 7 o'clock for the meeting, then out of nowhere he casually drops that his dad has zero clue he is even here right now. It is wild how one sentence can plunge the room into sub-zero temperatures. Sometimes you just have to crack up laughing when you are completely backed into a corner, just to remind yourself that your heart is still beating. Emma catches this tiny shift in his body language, a microtension proving the insane risk he is taking. He sneaked to the diner behind the Don's back, completely off the grid, just to give her a heads up. His game plan is absolutely staggering. He tells her that when she meets the boss, she needs to tell the absolute truth about his alley confession. He promises to tank all the damage himself just to free her from his massive web of lies. Genuine protection is not just hiding the ugly truth from someone. Real, raw protection is intentionally stepping right into the line of fire, so another person not get crushed by a heavy burden that was never theirs to carry in the first place. That is some serious, undeniable loyalty right there. Emma searches his bruised, beaten face, straight up asking why he gives a damn about a random waitress. Ethan's answer is just drenched in years of dark, unspoken trauma. He knows exactly how much it destroys a person to hold secrets for the Sullivan Empire, and he absolutely refuses to let her soul get shredded by that same toxic weight. He stands up and drops 2 crisp bills on the counter, way too much for a basic coffee, which she totally would have argued about. But she stops him right at the glass door, calling him out and demanding to know what he actually whispered in that alley. Empathy always bleeds from our deepest scars, you know. The people who fight the absolute hardest to drag you out of the darkness are always the ones who have spent their whole lives trapped inside it. The whole diner basically freezes. The clanking plates and background chatter fade into this heavy, suffocating silence. Ethan holds eye contact from across the room for what feels like an eternity. When he finally speaks, his voice is a total ghost meant only for her ears. He drops the ultimate bombshell. He suspects the ambush was an inside job. Boom. And just like that, he pushes out the door and vanishes into the city. Emma sits there totally paralyzed, her coffee going ice cold, as the absolute horror of that plot twist hits her. The very same crew that cleaned up that bloody alley in 4 minutes flat is actively hunting him down. The massive walls we build to block out the monsters are completely useless once they are already locked inside with us. All right, let's unpack this insane escalation. Someone in this ruthless underworld literally left the boss's son bleeding out in a dark alley, and the Don has zero clue. His boy knows it was an inside hit. Now, Emma, a tired waitress surviving on peanuts, is suddenly holding this explosive secret. She folds up her worn-out apron and heads home to get dressed for a literal Mafia interrogation dinner. A sleek black car rolls up right on schedule at 6:55. The silent enforcer driving holds the back door open like an actual steel trap, but she climbs in without even blinking. This is the wild thing about making a point-of-no-return choice. The real agony is just the overthinking right before you jump off the cliff. Once you actually take the leap, all you feel is the wind. Emma rests her cheek against the freezing window, watching her messy, familiar world literally disappear. The gritty streets morph into these wide, spotless avenues lined with massive mansions. It is like crossing into a totally different universe that is gorgeous but incredibly toxic. She keeps replaying Ethan's dark warning on an endless loop. His family forces you into a corner until you only have one move left. And she realizes she was doomed the second she dialed that phone. The car pulls up to this extremely low-key, elegant townhouse. No massive gates, no armed goons, just the terrifying, silent flecks of old money. It is a super haunting life lesson, honestly. True danger never kicks the door down screaming. It usually just waits for you patiently behind a beautifully carved, quiet door. The heavy oak door swings wide open before Emma even touches the top step. Standing there is this lady with tight silver hair, rocking a cozy knit sweater. She looks exactly like your wholesome Sunday bacon grandma, which Emma instantly knows is a complete, massive fake out. The woman calls her Miss Turner with a voice like warm honey, saying the dawn is waiting. The very millisecond Emma steps into the foyer, all the chaotic city noise just gets cut off. Total, suffocating silence. This lady, Rosa, floats down the dim hallways like some ancient ghost haunting the estate. She does not even look back to give directions, just completely expecting Emma to obey. Sometimes the people giving you the warmest smiles are the exact same ones guarding the darkest cages. You and I have definitely felt that heart-dropping point of no return, right? The heavy door clicks shut behind her, and with Rosa gliding ahead, walking forward is literally her only survival option. Rosa halts at these intimidating, towering double doors, taps twice, and flashes this insanely creepy, unreadable smile. She asks if Emma wants coffee like this is just a casual Tuesday book club. Emma keeps her voice rock solid and says she is fine. Rosa basically dissolves into the shadows, leaving Emma completely alone. She takes this massive, lung-expanding breath, bracing herself like she is about to get hit by a freight train. Life absolutely requires those deep breaths right before you step into the ring with your demons. She shoves the heavy wood open. Vincent does not even bother turning around. He just lets Emma walk into this massive, dead-silent office and stand there like a lost stray. Emma instantly knows this power play is totally on purpose. Every tiny thing this boss does is genetically engineered to crush your spirit. Letting her sweat in that brutal silence is his way of flexing that he owns the room. When he finally spins around, he looks like a completely different person from that bloody alley. Slick, polished, sporting a sharp, dark jacket. The panicked dad from last night is gone, replaced by the mob king on his throne. But his eyes, exactly the same, totally dead. It is a savage truth. But you can dress a monster in a $5,000 suit, and his cold eyes will still expose exactly how many bodies he has buried in the desert. Look at this massive power move happening right here. Vincent is running her through a mental X-ray, totally sizing her up. He drops a smooth thank you for coming, and Emma actually claps back. Her voice does not even shake. But here is the crazy part. Instead of hiding behind a huge desk like a typical boss, Vincent sits directly across from her. Zero barriers. Just a deadly stare down. Then he drops the bomb, saying his son mentioned she refused a ride. Emma is completely shook. Ethan actually spilled the tea to his terrifying dad? Vincent flatly says his son tells him everything. It shows you a harsh truth about life. We think hiding behind thick walls keeps us safe, but the smartest predators know that removing your shield is what makes you freeze up in pure terror. A ghost of a smile actually creeps across this boss's jaw. He notes that Ethan went to her first and asks what they talked about. Emma stares right back into the dark abyss of his eyes. She flashes back to Ethan begging her to drop the truth, deciding right now whose secret she is going to leak. She speaks fast, exactly how you do when the pressure is maxed out. She quietly says Ethan told her about the hit and wanted his dad to know the real story. The room instantly turns into a literal graveyard. Vincent Sullivan completely stops breathing and goes unnaturally still. You learn a lot about a guy by what makes him freeze up. The real-life lesson here is that our deepest pain always comes from the people we love the most, because that is the one place our armor fails us. You and I have to pause right here because we both know how insanely loud a quiet room can get. Vincent sits perfectly still, but his brain is violently spinning. He whispers out, "Did he? And guys?" That was definitely not a question. Emma just completely drops the bomb, saying Ethan thinks it was an inside job. She says it with the flat tone of a waitress reading a lunch receipt. Then, Vincent says nothing for 6 agonizing seconds. Emma counts every single tick of the clock. 6 seconds of dead air from a lethal crime boss feels like you are straight up drowning in an ice lake. It teaches you something real. We spend our entire lives running from silence, putting on background noise because total silence forces us to face the terrible things we just can't outrun. He finally gets up from his chair, moving like a guy with heavy weights chained to his ankles, and drifts over to the window. Emma is watching the heavy slump of his shoulders, witnessing a father taking a brutal bullet he always knew was coming. He asks the glass why his son would tell this to a girl he met 4 hours ago. Emma claps back that this is exactly why. She is just a random nobody from 5th Street. Spilling the tea to her did not cost him his Mafia, loyalty, or mess with their toxic politics. It is a crazy plot twist, but it proves a huge point about human nature. There is a profound freedom in confessing to a total stranger. When the people you love the most are the ones holding the knives to your back, the only safe place left is a random nobody in an alley. Vincent slowly turns around, locking her down with a look that will haunt her for years. It is the shattered face of a major boss who just heard the raw truth from a waitress, all because his own toxic family was too scared to say it. He murmurs that she is way sharper than she lets on. But Emma is not playing games. She fires right back that she is exactly who she appears to be. And he just made his own assumptions. The room goes dead quiet again. Then, against all odds, the untouchable boss almost smiles. Just a tiny twitch of the lips before it vanishes. This moment drops a serious truth bomb on us. The most powerful people in the world are completely starved for the exact thing all their massive wealth can never buy. Someone with the pure guts to just tell them the harsh truth. Emma totally knows the difference between a fake performance and a mask finally cracking. Last night, she saw a terrified dad, but tonight, she is looking at a completely broken king. He sinks back into his chair, and you can see the tension drop. He softly asks her to tell him about herself. She was bracing for a hardcore interrogation about the hitman, but instead, this terrifying boss looks at her with raw, genuine curiosity. Emma whispers that there is not much to tell. Vincent hits back, saying the people with the least to say are usually the ones worth knowing the most. It is such a wild tragedy, right? The loudest people in the room are almost always completely empty inside, while the quiet ones are out here carrying the heavy weight of the entire world on their backs. Emma drops the backstory, saying her mom got sick and she desperately needed the cash. She does not look down or beg for a single drop of pity. Her voice is pure hardened steel, like a girl who had to grow up way too fast to survive. She adds that it is just her left now. Vincent takes that in, letting the heavy gravity of her loneliness hit the room. He notes she took that dark alley as a shortcut and asks why she stopped. Emma admits she does not even know, but Vincent softly says he knows exactly why. It is because she is simply not someone who can walk away. We live in a world where everyone turns a blind eye just to protect themselves. But every now and then, a rare soul stops. The harsh lesson is that kind of brutal empathy will always drag you straight into the fire. Stick with me here, because Vincent drops some heavy truth. He tells her that to survive in this city, we literally train ourselves to ignore the shadows. It is just basic survival. But he says she never learned how to do that. He is looking at her with genuine, profound respect. He says that is exactly what saved his son's life. Boom. Those 3 agonizing words completely strip away his Mafia armor. Emma gently asks how Ethan is doing. Vincent says he is angry, which means he is going to make it, because Ethan goes totally silent when he is really hurting. This is a massive life lesson carved right into our scars. We always think anger is just a toxic weapon of destruction, but sometimes raw fury is the only fuel left that proves we are still fighting to survive. A wave of exhaustion washes over Vincent's face. The whole crime lord vibe vanishes, leaving just a terrified, aging dad. He asks if she is genuinely glad his son is alive, letting his extreme Mafia paranoia bleed into his voice. Emma does not even blink and says, yeah. Vincent rests his elbows on his knees, looking like a dude carrying a mountain of bodies on his back. You can see that bone-deep exhaustion that only comes from outliving your own soul. He softly asks what she is going to do with all this insane intel. Emma holds her ground and just says, nothing. It is wild. But it teaches us that the most dangerous currency in this dark world is not cash or weapons. It is trust. Sometimes, the very best gift you can give someone is to permanently bury their darkest secrets. She repeats that she is doing absolutely nothing. Her voice is super steady, but totally hollow, dropping like a bell in the dead of night. She says she is just going home to pour coffee tomorrow and completely erase this whole mob nightmare from her brain. She drops a massive reality check, saying she does not want a single dime or favor. She just made a call and stayed. She refuses to be a player in this deadly game. Vincent just stares at her, and the silence gets so painfully intense that you can literally hear the antique clock chopping up the seconds. It is pure sheer tension. But here is the hard truth about life. We all know you cannot just unsee the darkness once you finally step inside of it. Some doors, once they get kicked open, simply never close ever again. Vincent hits right back, rumbling that her speech is exactly what a secret player would say to cover their tracks. Emma totally owns it, saying she cannot prove a negative, so he just has to decide what he believes. Vincent lets out this slow breath and actually admits he chooses to believe her. But then the vibe gets freezing cold. He warns her that all the dark secrets she knows now put her in a spot where her innocent intentions do not matter one single bit. A massive chill just spills down Emma's spine. He is not even threatening her. He is just handing her the ugliest reality check. She is officially inside the Mafia fortress. The hardest lesson we ever have to learn is that pure intentions will never shield us from the bloody reality of the world. You are part of it now. Emma points out the obvious massive problem here. Other guys in this underworld do not have Vincent's rare mercy, and they will paint their own bloody pictures. She whispers that someone tried to take out his son, and she is the one loose thread left behind. Whoever ordered that hit is going to come pulling that thread very soon. Vincent stays looking like carved stone, but his dark eyes shift. He totally confesses that she is not at all what he expected. A crazy shiver goes through her because Ethan literally said those exact same words hours ago. Father and son, totally bound by the same gut instinct, Emma breathes out, asking what he actually expected her to demand. It is crazy how we often walk straight into our terrifying destiny while desperately trying to avoid it. Vincent honestly admits he totally thought she was going to demand a massive bag of cash to stay quiet. He was fully ready to pay out because it is the practical mob move. But deep down, he would have been incredibly disappointed. Emma locks eyes with him and drops a highly sarcastic comeback. She says she totally expected him to shove a massive checkbook in her face, and she would have to decide whether to act deeply offended or just be practical. Vincent gets super curious and asks which she would have chosen. Emma smirks and says probably both, because she is a very efficient person. The terrifying old boss actually smiles at that. We all build thick, heavy walls to survive. But true courage is just knowing when to let someone peek right through those cracks. Guys, the vibe in the room literally flipped in a millisecond. You know that heavy, suffocating pressure right before a massive storm hits? That was it. Vincent, the absolute Don, looks Emma dead in the eye. I'm not throwing cash at you. I'm handing you something way better. His shadow, Rosa, spawns like a ghost. Spawns like a ghost. Vincent mutters a boss-level command. She nods and vanishes. Then he hits Emma with the ultimate flex, his private burner. Call this the exact second you feel watched, he orders. If a car sits too long, dial. Look, you and I both know true safety is totally a myth. Sometimes the exact shield you use to block the hits is the very thing, painting a massive bullseye on your back. Emma is practically vibrating, her heart hammering like crazy. Wait, you seriously think I'm targeted? She gasps. Vincent treats his next sentence like he's snipping the red wire on a bomb. I don't know yet, but until I'm sure, I want you 30 seconds away from my muscle. Suddenly, the door groans, and Ethan steps into the dim room. He instantly scans the thick tension, reading his dad's rigid posture and connecting the dots in real time. You spilled it, Ethan says, totally deadpan. You literally told me to. Emma claps back softly. They just lock eyes, having this whole agonizing, telepathic screaming match. Real talk, the deepest cuts we ever take usually don't come from a loud argument, but from the brutal silence of the people we care about. Who called the hit? Vincent shoots the question straight at his kid. Zero fluff. The words smash into the quiet room like a sledgehammer. Ethan doesn't blink, but you can see his jaw clench so hard it might snap. That tiny delay is a dead giveaway. He has a name screaming in his head and a face he is dying to cave in. We aren't having this chat right now. Ethan growls, throwing a protective look at Emma. She stays. The Don barks back, his voice shaking the floor. Ethan pushes back. She's a literal civilian. But Vincent goes nuclear. She stopped being a nobody the second she rang us for backup. Honestly, when your entire life is built on toxic street wars, stepping up for one innocent stranger might be the only shot you have at washing the blood off your own hands. Emma just sinks into her chair, front row to this insane mobster standoff between father and son. Guys, picture the pure burnout of growing up in that mess. A lifestyle where even breakfast feels like stepping on a landmine, and every single breath is a chess move. Ethan locks those dark, beat-up eyes right onto her. But Emma, she stares right back. She didn't beg for a front seat to this Mafia drama, The dawn forced her to stay, and she is totally done acting sorry for staying alive. Finally, Ethan's spits out the ultimate bad guy name, Caruso. The word literally drips with poison, and he doesn't break eye contact with her for a second. It is crazy, but sometimes we only figure out how to beat our worst nightmares the second we finally gather the guts to scream their names out loud. Vincent lets that toxic name float in the room, totally stone-faced. Marco Caruso. Ethan pushes, his frustration spilling out. His goons have been creeping into our turf for half a year. We fought over this, and you ordered me to stand down. Ethan tries to play it cool, but you can feel the massive grudge boiling over. Well, I got sick of waiting. I launched a raid last week. 3 days later, I got tracked and took a knife to the ribs. The silence that hits the room is violently heavy. You made a strike, Vincent whispers. The danger obvious. Without my green light. Yeah, I did. Ethan snaps right back. Listen, bad blood always spreads the fastest in the shadows. Feeding off the messy truths we are too terrified to spit out when it really counts. Why? That one word drops out of Vincent's mouth like a gut punch, quiet but lethal. Ethan glares daggers at the boss who raised him. Because I knew you'd bench me. Bro, the look of pure torture that flashes across Vincent's face is insane. It isn't just rage, it's straight-up mourn of hate. It's the ultimate tragedy of a king realizing his empire is rotting from the inside. You assumed, Vincent mutters, that Caruso already planted rats in our crew. You thought my guy would snitch. Ethan doesn't even blink, letting the dead air act as his answer. The old man slowly turns his back to stare out the massive window. Trust me, the most brutal wake-up call in life is finding out the giant walls you built to block out the villains are actually locking them inside with you. Emma watches Vincent's stiff shoulders and totally gets it. She is witnessing a literal giant crumble. How long, the dawn whispers to the glass. How long did you suspect a snake was eating at our table? Ethan gulps, his swagger fading. 4 months. Boom. That timeline hits the old boss like a freight train, Ian. You can physically see the guy's posture snap. And you ghosted me on this. I didn't have the receipts. Ethan finally loses his cool. All I've got is sketchy behavior and a stab wound. His mobster mask completely shatters, showing the scared kid hiding underneath. I couldn't risk being wrong, Dad. Real talk, dropping your guard is scary as hell. But it's literally the only way to smash through the massive barriers we build out of stupid, stubborn pride. This wasn't some dramatic cartel standoff anymore. It was literally just a broken kid begging his dad to understand. Emma feels this massive knot in her throat, watching it go down. Vincent slowly spins away from the window, looking completely hollowed out. He is caught in this insane limbo between being a ruthless mob general and a dad absolutely terrified of burying his son. He looks at his beat-up kid, then locks eyes with Emma. Miss Turner, he rasps, sounding wrecked. I owe you a giant apology. You took a random shortcut home and accidentally stepped straight into a war zone. It is wild, but life usually doesn't even punish you for being bad. It just wrecks you for standing in the exact wrong spot when the karma police show up to collect. He lets that super dark reality just hang in the air. I'm seriously sorry. Getting a target on your back isn't the prize you get for playing the hero. Emma sizes Vincent up. Here is this silver-haired mafia boss, wearing his absolute panic over his kid like a tailored suit. She flashes back to the diner, picturing Ethan's bruised face, remembering how hard he tried to keep her out of his mess. The boss and the hitman, two totally lethal guys, both busting their backs to shield a random waitress who stumbled into their web. Emma just tilts her chin up like a total boss. Don't say sorry yet. Let's see who actually survives this mess. You and I both know the wildest plot twist in life is finding solid, undeniable honor, hiding inside the absolute sketchiest people. Emma drops the word quietly, but she absolutely refuses to take it back. The fancy clock on the wall ticks away, officially counting down the death of her boring, normal existence. Somewhere in the mansion, a door clicks. Outside, the city is sleeping, completely clueless that a basic point diner waitress just leveled up and crossed the point of no return. She used to be totally fine being a nobody, working her shift and crashing on a busted couch every night. But that old Emma? Totally deleted. She locks eyes with both Vincent and Ethan, standing her ground with the heavy hitters. Listen up, the fast lanes and shortcuts we try to take in life almost never drop us off where we actually plan to go, but they always put us exactly where we need to be. She dips out of the mob mansion at 9:47, and by 6 in the morning, she is literally tying her apron at the diner. That is the ultimate flex of Emma Turner. She can look pure Mafia danger in the face, then spin around and serve filter coffee like it is nothing. Rent is still due, guys, and the landlord does not care about your mobster side quests, but her normal reality is already glitching out. It always starts super small, right? That creepy black sedan from yesterday is poof, gone. But now, there is a silver ride parked half a block away. New model, swapped plates, same exact stalker vibe. Let me tell you, the universe is always flashing giant red warning signs before the tornado hits, if we just stop scrolling and actually pay attention to the street. That silver car is chilling out front when she clocks in, but completely vanishes. By 11, boom, 2 blocks down, a fresh vehicle takes the exact same surveillance angle. If she wasn't tracking the blind spots like Don Vincent taught her, she totally would have missed the rotation. But she doesn't smash that panic button, because flinching first is the fastest way to get yourself clipped in this game. She just eats her anxiety and keeps pouring coffee. Then, around 1, this random dude slides up to the counter. He grabs some pie, glares at his screen, and drops a 20 on a $7 tab without making a single second of eye contact. Listen, we all know for a fact, the guys making zero noise are always the ones holding the absolute deadliest secrets. Emma tops off his mug twice, flashing that fake customer service grin while totally scanning his vibe. She clocks how he glues his back to the wall, his eyes aggressively tracking the entrance. That is the absolute trademark stance of a guy who sleeps with one eye open. Soon as he dips, she spots a tiny folded note shoved under his mug. Playing it ridiculously cool, she snags it like trash and stashes it in her apron. She casually drops off food to table 6, totally unbothered, and waits until she is completely invisible in the dark hallway to unfold it. 4 exact words, written in crazy neat handwriting. Do not go home tonight. The craziest thing about life is that the most heart-stopping, catastrophic red flags always come in the absolute most basic packages. Bro, picture this. Emma is literally frozen in the hallway for 10 straight seconds. She finally snaps out of it, jams the note in her pocket, and casually power walks through the lunch rush like nothing happened. Fast forward to 2 o'clock. She is hiding in the walk-in freezer, her only safe zone, smelling like frozen soup and pure anxiety. She calls the mob boss, Vincent, and skips the small talk. 1 agonizing second of silence. He says, "Nope." Guys, her stomach absolutely drops to the floor. Look, here is the life lesson for today. When you finally ask the terrifying questions, you better be fully braced for the answers to completely wreck your reality. She immediately starts blasting out the creepy guy's stats, his stiff walk, his exact tip, all of it. Listen to this. She hears the boss whispering to someone off-screen before coming back to the line. Emmys, this is a massive deal. The big boss never drops her formal title. And hearing her real name in his gravelly voice hits her like a lightning bolt. He orders her to lock down inside the diner after her shift. Backup is coming, but she cannot trust anyone unless they drop the secret password, which is November. She repeats the month out loud to stay grounded. He tells her not to panic. She straight up replies, "I am terrified, but I am still moving." Over the line, the ruthless mobster actually lets out a warm sigh. Here is a little life lesson for you. Real bravery is not about having zero fear. It is just about forcing your shaking legs to take one more step forward anyway. So she does exactly what the boss says and stays put. She cleans the espresso machines twice and restocks napkins that do not even need restocking. Her manager is like, "Are you good?" Emma just blames it on a rough week. The manager sighs, "Babe, it is only Wednesday." Absolute mood, right? Finally, at 3:22, the front bell rings. She is completely braced for some giant Mafia meathead to walk in. But plot twist, it is Ethan Sullivan. He rolls up in a wrinkled gray jacket, looking absolutely wrecked, basically running on pure adrenaline and bad choices. Look, we have all been there, and it teaches us something real. Sometimes the universe ignores the logical backup you asked for, and instead sends you the exact chaotic mess of a person you actually need to survive the darkness. November, Ethan says, his voice super raspy before she even gets a word out. Emma nods, totally relieved. That is the password, she says. He tells her they are on a ticking clock. Get this, the big boss did not even send him. Ethan personally volunteered to walk right into the crossfire for her. She rips off her apron, ignores her manager, throwing an absolute fit, and sprints outside. A dusty, average-looking car is idling at the curb, perfectly stealthy for a clean getaway. Ethan jumps into the driver's seat and guns the gas before her passenger door even clicks shut. Here is the life lesson for today, guys. When you finally hand over your survival to someone else, you have to stop stressing about the crazy destination and just hold on tightly for the absolute wildest ride of your life. We do not know who left that note, Ethan mutters, his eyes constantly darting to the mirrors. Emma is quickly realizing that paranoia is just standard operating procedure for this guy. He breaks it down for her. That creepy tip was not random, it was a direct threat from someone who knows she visited the Mafia compound. "They want me scared," she whispers. Ethan corrects her instantly. "No, they want you gone." He explains that panicked people make noise, but dead people keep secrets forever. Someone is desperately trying to tie up loose ends before the boss catches the mole, and Emma is their easiest target. It is a harsh wake-up call, but here is a brutal life lesson. Your pure innocence is absolutely never going to protect you when the bad guys decide it is finally time to start cleaning house. He warned her about this exact scenario yesterday, but the reality is hitting her like a freight train right now. Ethan violently swerves the car across 2 lanes of traffic. He drops a massive lore bomb. His dad has been making lethal phone calls all night, hunting down the rat who is leaking their secrets, whoever that traitor is. They are sweating bullets. And what happens when bad guys panic? They get sloppy. Leaving a threat in broad daylight was a massive rookie mistake. Emma just sits there, totally frozen, daydreaming about her tiny apartment and the quiet hum of her kitchen. Listen to me. You and I never truly appreciate the sweet, beautiful boredom of an ordinary life until the exact second some crazy drama violently rips it all away from us. Appreciate your hard-earned peace, guys. She is literally mourning her normal life, completely rattled by the last 36 hours of pure mob chaos. "Where are we even going?" she asks. "Somewhere safe," Ethan replies, explaining that his dad needs 12 hours to clean up the mess. Then, this hardcore enforcer lets out a heavy sigh and actually apologizes to her again. "Stop," Emma snaps back. her voice turning to solid steel. She tells him point blank that she made her own choices, absolutely refusing to let him play the tragic hero with her life. Ethan stares at her way longer than he should while driving. He looks like a guy mesmerized by something beautiful he is not allowed to touch. Trust me on this life lesson, guys. True, unbreakable respect between two people is only ever forged in the absolute most terrifying moments. They cruise in dead silence for 20 minutes until the city fades into this super low-key neighborhood. Ethan parks at a classic brownstone, unlocks the heavy door, and waves her inside. "Whose place is this?" she asks. "Mine," he says. "And he mansion." Just his. The vibe shift here is absolutely insane. His dad's estate felt like a creepy, freezing museum built to flex on enemies. But this spot? It is shockingly normal. It is the secret hideout where a lethal guy actually kicks back and takes off his armor. Let us pause for a major life lesson here. You and I can figure out literally everything about a person's true soul just by looking at the quiet, messy sanctuary they've built for themselves when the rest of the world finally stops watching. Inside, Emma spots a stack of paperback books, a dirty coffee mug, and a jacket randomly tossed on a chair. Against all logic, standing in the middle of a Mafia enforcer's secret base, she feels completely relaxed. "Sit wherever," Ethan says, walking into the kitchen. He warns her that his cooking is highly questionable. Emma tries to act tough and loudly betrays her, but her stomach loudly betrays her. Running on pure terror burns a lot of calories. Guys, whatever you have is fine, she completely gives up. She melts into the couch cushions, and for the first time since this nightmare started, she finally drops her brave face. Here is the reality check. We all wear incredibly heavy armor to survive this brutal world. But eventually, we just need a messy, quiet room to drop the shield and breathe. You know that late-night vibe, right? When the shadows get long and you just want to completely vanish. Emma leans her head back, taking 3 deep breaths to fight off the panic. "Are you okay?" Ethan calls out from the kitchen. "Fine, she totally lies. Just distract me with something normal." A spoon clinks, and then Ethan drops a massive lore bomb. "I wanted to be an architect," he says. Emma is shook. "Really?" He says, "Yeah, up until he was 19, he loved building things. But then his grandpa got sick, the Mafia needed an heir, and his dream was crushed. It is brutal. But there is a deep life lesson wrapped in this tragedy. Sometimes the beautiful plans we carefully build for ourselves have to completely fall apart, just so the people we love can keep standing in the storm." "Do you resent it?" Emma asks, and the question just hangs there like a massive weight. Ethan pauses, and his raw honesty hits so hard. He admits that some days, just looking at a nice building physically hurts him, so he forces his brain to shut it out. He leans against the doorframe, looking like a dark movie poster, and flips the script. "What did you want to be?" he asks. Emma literally freezes. "Bro, nobody has asked her that since high school." "A teacher," she whispers, remembering her fake living room. Listen, here is the absolute saddest life lesson of all. It is a quiet tragedy how easily we abandon our inner child. The best, truest parts of who we are usually get buried 10 feet deep, just trying to survive the brutal, exhausting grind of making it to tomorrow. My mom used to watch me play teacher and just smile at how seriously I took the whole thing, Emma adds. Guys, Ethan's cold Mafia expression completely melts into this tragically soft look. "Why didn't you do it?" he asks. She hits him right back with the ultimate truth. "Same reason. You did not. Life got in the way." He just stares at her. For the hitman's eyes have zero icy calculation in them. It is just pure understanding, a massive crack in the armor they both wear. 10 minutes later, he hands her a bowl of simple pasta, but honestly, it tastes like pure comfort. Here is your final life lesson for today. We waste so much energy building giant walls to look tough, but the moments that actually save us are when we drop the act and let someone feed our tired souls. All right, guys, let us jump right back into the absolute madness, because you and I both know the tension here is thick enough to cut with a knife. Emma finally puts her bowl down and demands to know about this Caruso guy. Ethan leans forward, looking exactly like his terrifying Mafia boss father, about to spill the tea. He tells her Caruso has been running the EC side for 8 years. His dad had a truce with the guy to keep the streets clean. But the second his dad stepped back and let Ethan take the wheel, Caruso smelled blood in the water and made his move. It is just like real life, honestly. The absolute second you try to step back and finally enjoy a little peace and quiet, someone is always going to pull up and test your boundaries to see if you went completely soft. Ethan looks at his hands, totally eaten up by guilt, explaining how the turf war started with tiny little accidents. Then he went full boss mode and just shut down one of Caruso's main supply lines. No guns blazing, just a quiet flex to say the shop is closed. But here is the massive mistake he never told his old man. He thought he was being a hero. Emma looks right through him and drops a truth bomb. She says he just wanted to prove he could run the empire without his dad holding his hand. The silence after that is absolutely deafening. She thinks she pushed too far. But honestly, we usually end up hurting our loved ones the most when we try to prove how independent we are. Asking for help from the people who raised us is not weak. It is exactly how we stay safe in this crazy world. Ethan is totally wiped out, rubbing his face and admitting she is right on the money. But here comes the craziest plot twist, guys. He reveals someone inside their own Mafia family ratted him out to Caruso. Emma leans in, completely hooked, asking who else knows about the leak. Ethan says only his dad's top enforcers took Masalama. When she asks if he actually dodged the Trustin, he tries to dodge the question. But our girl Emma is not having it. She presses him, and Ethan admits he trusts Luca, but his gut is screaming that Dom is the rat. The problem is, his dad needs hard proof, which is impossible to get when the traitor knows you are onto them. Trust is literally like a piece of fragile glass. The second you see a tiny crack, you spend the rest of your life terrified it is going to absolutely shatter. You have to stay with me here, because this is where the mind games reach a new level. Emma sits there like a statue, flinching at every car driving by. She is getting that pure survival instinct now. She starts putting the pieces together like a genius. The warning note she got? If Ethan's crew did not mention it, Caruso definitely did. That means the Mafia rat gave the enemy her name. The bad guys know she was at the boss's house, talking behind closed doors, and now they are losing their minds, worrying about what she might have seen. Ethan is completely stunned, telling her to walk him through the whole theory. Fear is such a powerful compass in life. If you want to figure out what a person is hiding, just sit back and watch what makes them panic and scramble to cover their tracks. Emma drops pure fire logic, explaining that the traitor feels the walls closing in. They saw a random waitress get dragged into the Mafia Don's private study, followed by frantic phone calls. She looks Ethan dead in the eye, saying they are not trying to scare her because she is some big threat. They are terrified because they have no clue what she actually knows. The unknown is always way scarier than the truth. The tension is off the charts. Ethan is completely mind-blown that she figured out this massive conspiracy in 45 seconds. She just smiles and says she had time to think while pouring coffee. It shows that your mind is your absolute best weapon. Even when you feel totally powerless, your ability to connect the dots is the one thing no one can ever steal from you. Ethan looks at her like she is an absolute genius, He says the crazy theory she just laid out is pure, uncut power. The only thing keeping her breathing right now is the fact that the bad guys are terrified of what she might be hiding. The cold reality really hits her. Ethan decides the big boss needs to hear this, so he dials his dad. Vincent picks up fast, and Ethan tosses the phone onto the coffee table on speaker. It sits there like a heavy bridge connecting two totally different worlds. Ethan tells his dad she has something huge. Sometimes in life, the very thing that makes you vulnerable can actually become your best shield. Letting people fear the secrets you might be holding is honestly the absolute smartest way to survive when the whole world is coming for your head. Emma leans into the phone and drops the brutal truth on the boss. She explains everything flawlessly, telling him the warning note was not a basic threat, but a massive sign of panic. Her just being alive is driving the traitor crazy with paranoia. After she finishes, the dead silence from the speaker is intense. Vincent speaks up, realizing she wants to use herself as bait. Our girl is totally icy, telling him the bait is already floating, so they might as well catch the rat. Ethan jumps in, whispering that he thinks the traitor is Dom, and Vincent instantly snaps at him to stop. It is a wild plot twist. When you finally stop running away and start turning the enemy's own traps against them, you officially stop being the helpless victim and become the apex hunter. Listen, guys, the worst betrayals never come from strangers. Ethan begs his dad to see the truth. He points out the rat knew Emma was at their mansion, moving fast enough to send a goon to her diner by 1. Only someone managing the boss's schedule could pull that off. The pause that drops next feels like a Kaufenlaud's slamish line. Dom is the only one with that axe shut. Ethan says Dom is the only one with that access. The vibe from the phone shifts completely. It is like listening to a man bleed out from a knife in the back. Vincent chokes up, whispering that Dom has been with him for 22 years. It is incredibly tragic. You give someone your best years in blind trust, only to wake up and realize they weaponized every single second of it against you. Vincent sounds like he is holding back a hurricane, masking the devastation in his voice, as he repeats that Dom was family for 2 decades. Emma looks away because it feels too personal, like crashing a funeral. Ethan stays calm and promises to get the hard proof, begging his dad to let him handle the rat cleanly without reckless mob drama. Vincent sighs heavily, wanting to handle it himself, but after an agonizing pause, the old man yields. He tells Ethan to explain the plan. Guys, this is a massive plot twist. It is the exact moment the legendary boss passes the torch to his son. It is a profound turning point in life. There comes a day when we have to stop asking for permission and finally step up to carry the heavy lifting our parents just cannot handle anymore. You see Ethan leveling up right in front of us, shedding his old self to become the ruthless boss he is meant to be. He looks at the phone and says Emma is the plan. Our girl absolutely freezes. Ethan explains that since she is the loose thread the bad guys are stressing over, they will fake her skipping town. In reality, she will be their secret weapon, moving like a ghost. Nobody in the Mafia will suspect a random waitress to be playing high-level chess, especially an arrogant guy like Dom, who disrespects outsiders. Vincent barks a warning, panicked about using a civilian. But honestly, arrogance is always a fatal flaw. The second you assume someone is weak just because of where they come from, you hand them the exact invisible weapon they need to absolutely destroy you. Vincent demands to know what wild scheme his son is cooking up. Ethan plays it cool, saying they will orchestrate a fake accidental run in between Dom and Emma. She will drop vague hints and let Dom's paranoid conscience do the heavy lifting. His reaction will be all the proof the family needs. Ethan hypes her up, telling his dad Emma is a natural at mental warfare. You and I are going to watch this play out together, guys. The silence on the phone stretches out for an eternity. 15 seconds. 20. Emma is counting the ticks to stop from losing her mind. It teaches a brutal lesson about human nature. You rarely have to beat a confession out of a guilty person. If you just give them a little bit of silence and enough rope, they will almost always hang themselves. Emma realizes she is being dragged straight into the eye of a Mafia hurricane she never asked for. Vincent's voice cuts through the tension, telling her straight up no one is going to force her into this deadly game. He makes sure Ethan hears it, so there is zero confusion, then asks what she wants to do. Emma closes her eyes, flashing back to that creepy warning note, the stalker car in the night, and the rat who sold Ethan out to die in a freezing alleyway. You and I both know how this goes, guys. In life, the absolute hardest choices you will ever make are the ones where doing nothing actually hurts way more than walking straight into the fire. She knows she cannot just let a 20-year betrayal walk away without making them face some serious, permanent consequences. Listen up, because Emma is absolutely done playing the victim. She thinks about her mom, a woman who spent her whole life ignoring the ugly truth and suffocating under quiet regrets. Emma refuses to inherit that silence. She then lets out this heavy sigh. Completely relieved, she is finally stepping up. He spills the tea. Dom is 61, incredibly vain, and thinks he is the best judge of character in the entire mob. Ethan actually scoffs in the background, proving Dom is completely blind to reality. Vincent says Dom holds court at Carmine's on Thursday. 2 days. Ethan panics, begging her not to go, but Emma just stares into the dark, totally fearless. Here is a life lesson for you. The most dangerous people are not the ones forced into a corner, but the ones who voluntarily walk straight into the fire. Emma completely shuts them down, telling them to stop treating her like she is made of glass. She hits them with a massive reality check. She has spent 12 years handling the most unpredictable, difficult people in cramped spaces. Sitting across from an arrogant boss and ripping away his secrets is going to be a total walk in the park. She lets the silence hang, making sure these mob guys feel her absolute gravity. You and I both know that real power does not ever need to shout. She demands every single detail about Dom. What feeds his ego and what gives him nightmares. The tension in that room is suffocating. Finally, Ethan caves with a quiet okay. Vincent echoes him, his voice dropping into this incredibly dark, heavy resolve. Always remember this life lesson. The biggest power moves are made by the people everyone else ignores. Those 2 days feel like an absolute eternity, but also like 2 frantic minutes. Time is incredibly cruel when you are bracing for a massive collision. Thursday is sprinting right at her. She has exactly 48 hours to morph into the helpless shadow a predator like Dom expects to see. Emma has spent 12 long years being completely underestimated by society, and now she is weaponizing that invisibility. Wednesday is a total drag. She works her usual diner shift, flying totally under the radar, pumping out bitter coffee, wiping down sticky tables, and flashing that fake smile. She wishes a good day to strangers who forget her face instantly. Here is a simple life lesson. Never ever confuse quiet routine with weakness. The person pouring your morning coffee might just be plotting the absolute downfall of a massive mafia empire. Emma plays her role absolutely flawlessly. To Dom and his crew, she is just some terrified civilian who ran away. But late at night, the mask totally drops. She sits at her kitchen table, listening to Ethan outline every single detail about the enemy. She studies Domenico Ferraro like she is prepping for the final exam of her life. She memorizes his rhythm, his desires, and his massive ego. Dom is an old-school player. He has been with the Sullivans for decades, blending in like living room furniture. He is so embedded that everyone stopped watching him. He is cautious, but not because he is scared. He is just stuck in a deeply rusted, cold habit. Take a note here on how life works. When a person gets too comfortable in their power, they stop looking for the hidden traps. That arrogant comfort is exactly what will destroy them in the end. Dom has spent decades standing inches from the fire without ever getting burned. The guy is fiercely proud of how well he reads a room, believing he is the top judge of character in the entire syndicate. Ethan completely destroys this delusion. Dom is incredibly vain. He lives for that quiet, terrifying respect at ultra-expensive restaurants. He craves the attention of women who have seen the dark side of the world. But guess what? Emma Turner is 32, and she has been underestimated since she was a teenager. She knows exactly how to play this game. She transforms into the exact type of woman a mob boss will stare at and completely dismiss in 30 seconds flat. Here is a massive life lesson. Being underestimated is the absolute greatest superpower you can have. They never see the blade coming until it is way too late. Ethan gives her the final rundown, his voice dropping into this gravelly whisper. He tells her not to force anything, just be the mirror this arrogant boss wants to look at. Let him fill the silence. You and I both know the deal with guys like this. Arrogant men literally suffocate if they are not talking. They need to hear their own voice just to feel in control. Emma knows Dom will bring up the Sullivan family. When he does, Ethan tells her to look completely shattered. Play the traumatized victim perfectly. Emma just replies coldly that faking the pain will not be hard at all. The phone goes dead silent. Ethan loses all his tough guy armor, hitting this raw, unfiltered tone that proves he genuinely cares about her. Here is a simple lesson. Sometimes the heaviest emotional scars end up being the exact weapons you need to win the war. Ethan goes into full panic mode, begging her to bail if anything feels off. He tells her to just stand up and walk away, reminding her that Luca is in the restaurant on standby. Emma is completely over it, sighing because he has repeated this 4 times already. The silence on the line is absolutely heavy. Ethan practically breaks down, telling her again she does not have to do this. But Emma just whispers goodnight. She manages to sleep for 4 hours. At 5 in the morning, the city is still pitch black. Instead of panicking, she does the most hardcore thing ever. She literally invites her fear into the room and faces it head on. She stares down the creeping nightmare without blinking. The life lesson here is simple but powerful. You cannot outrun your anxiety. The only way to beat the terror is to stare it right in the face and absolutely own it. Emma sizes up the situation perfectly. What is the absolute worst-case scenario? Dom sniffs out the trap and sees through her act. If that happens, she walks out and lets her mob bodyguards handle the massive fallout. But the best case? Dom talks, driven by his massive ego. This guy, who thinks he is the smartest shark in the ocean, will literally hand them the rope to hang him with. Emma has been surviving brutal, insane trauma since she was a 12-year-old girl. She is a total veteran at surviving terrible men. She knows she can handle one more dinner. Listen, you and I both know this essential truth about life. Sometimes survival is not about being the strongest person in the room. It is simply a matter of refusing to blink when the monster looks your way. Hold your ground and watch the arrogant fools completely destroy their own lives. Thursday finally hits. Emma brews her coffee, puts on her absolute best disguise. This restaurant is dripping with snobby arrogance, totally unapologetic about its wealth. Emma strolls in perfectly alone and demands a window table. She sits down with this flawless posture, completely blending in like she belongs among the elite. She orders sparkling water and just stares ahead. She refuses to look around for her backup. Looking around is exactly the kind of weak tell a predator like Dom would spot instantly. At 1:05, the devil himself walks into the room. She spots his silver hair and tailored jacket dripping with brutal, dirty money. Life lesson incoming. If you want to trap a monster, you have to act like you own the hunting ground. Confidence is the absolute best camouflage you can wear in a dangerous room. Dom glides through that dining room like a Mafia king returning to his throne. He is shaking hands and greeting the staff, acting completely untouchable. But Emma sees right through it. He is performing this fake confidence just like she is, except his act has been polished for decades. He notices her immediately. She literally feels his heavy, creeping gaze scan her profile. It is the calculated look of an apex predator locking onto his next victim. Emma plays it brilliantly, staring out the window to bait him in. Then she turns her head at the exact perfect second to catch him staring. She gives him the ultimate deer in the headlights look. Pay attention to this life lesson, guys. The most dangerous predators always think they are the ones in control of the hunt, completely blind to the fact that they are walking straight into a perfectly laid trap. Emma gives him this perfectly distant, distracted smile, acting like her heart is shattered and miles away. Dom sits at a nearby table with two massive goons. She clocks the bodyguards out of the corner of her eye, but totally ignores them. She casually eats her food, letting the tension boil. Right on cue, his massive shadow falls over her table. He uses this incredibly smooth, warm voice, dropping a completely practiced pickup line. He tells her she looks like she is waiting for someone who ghosted her. He even flashes a fake, self-deprecating smile and introduces himself. Emma plays the surprised civilian flawlessly. She just breathes the name Emma. No last name, total innocence. Here is a vital life lesson for you. The smoothest talkers are usually the biggest snakes. Never trust a warm smile when it comes from a guy who moves like a shark. Emma softly tells him she is not waiting for anyone, just thinking. Dom immediately points at the empty chair. She pulls off an absolute masterclass in acting, hesitating for just a split second before nodding. It is the exact reaction of a vulnerable, slightly shy woman. Dom sits down and orders a drink without looking at a menu, flexing his status like he owns the building. He starts gently asking about her life. He uses the fake empathy of a predator who knows victims only spill their guts when they feel validated. But Emma is way ahead of him. She feeds him a clean, edited version of her real life. Listen, you and I both know the absolute best lies are heavily wrapped in the truth. She tells him she is just a struggling waitress. The life lesson? When you need to completely fool an arrogant expert, give them a boring truth they will easily ignore. All right, guys, listen to this. You and I both know those sketchy people who listen just a little too hard, right? So Emma is sitting right across from Dom, letting the dead silence do the heavy lifting. She drops this casual line about having a crazy week, acting all innocent. Dom is staring at her, looking warm and fuzzy, but behind those eyes, pure villain machinery, bro. He is quietly loading up his mental ammo. Emma plays it perfectly, looking down at her glass, throwing in this fake little jaw clench she literally practiced in the mirror for an hour. She drops the bomb, saying she met some seriously powerful people. Honestly, the life lesson here is simple. Sometimes, playing the fool is the absolute sharpest weapon you can wield against a predator. So Dom is just staring her down, and Emma catches this wild micro-expression. It was this hyper-focused, razor-sharp interest, like a guard dog hearing a twig snap in the dark. He tries to play it cool, saying that sounds uncomfortable. But Emma? She drops a massive nuke, telling him it was clarifying, and that she knows way more than she ever wanted to. She wants him sweating bullets. Then comes the silence. 3 whole seconds of pure suspense. In that tiny window, Dom makes the exact fatal mistake she was waiting for. He totally forgets to ask what she knows. An innocent guy would instantly ask, right? The lesson is undeniable. The questions tell you, choose not to ask will always tell you exactly what they are hiding. Instead of acting normal, Dom flashes this fake, empty smile and totally changes the subject. He rambles about how powerful people are just good at one thing. Bro, he completely ignores the massive red flag she just waved. He never asks who she met or what she knows. He just dodges the truth like a literal mob boss who has dodged charges for 22 years. Sitting there, Emma gets this bone-chilling clarity. Ethan was 100% right about this snake. She keeps the innocent act going for another 20 minutes, feeding him all this fake panic and unease. It teaches us a super hard truth about life. When you finally see someone for who they truly are, you can never unsee it, no matter how beautiful their mask might be. She totally lets this guy think he is the one in control, filling up all the dead air she is leaving on purpose. By the time she finally walks out of the restaurant, her legs are literally shaking from the insane adrenaline rush. She barely makes it down the block before Luca just spawns out of the shadows like a total ghost. He mutters that the car is waiting, and then drops the craziest detail. He actually heard the whole thing. She freezes, realizing the Mafia literally wired the room. Mr. Sullivan wanted absolute proof. She swallows her rage because fighting an enforcer on the street is a terrible idea. It teaches us a really bitter reality. Trust is an expensive currency, and powerful men prefer to verify it. Luca tells her that both bosses are waiting. Let us step into that room together, guys, because the tension is insane. Vincent is already pacing the floor when she walks in, with Ethan standing right next to him like a dark shadow. You can literally feel the heavy energy in the room. They heard every single word. Emma sits down, cool as ice, and confirms the terrible truth. Dom did not ask a single question. Vincent looks absolutely wrecked as he agrees. The guy totally sidestepped her trap instead of walking into it. Emma looks the Don right in the eyes and hits him with the raw facts. Innocent people ask questions, but guilty people deflect. Vincent looks like his soul just left his body. The lesson rings true for all of us. Silence and deflection are often the loudest confessions a guilty heart can ever make. Emma totally stands her ground, reminding them that this was exactly what Ethan predicted. It was a test to clear his name, and Dom completely failed. Guys, the silence in that room was thicker than concrete. She just sits there, watching Vincent literally agonizing over 22 years of absolute trust getting destroyed by secret audio. She does not push him because some painful truths demand to be fully felt before you can deal with them. Ethan looks right at her across the dim room, sharing this incredibly intense moment of understanding. It is a crazy life lesson written in blood. Sometimes two totally broken people can start from completely opposite ends of the earth, only to find themselves standing in the exact same fire, finally understood. Vincent finally breaks the silence, saying he needs to make a call, and slips into the hallway. The door is cracked just enough for Emma to hear his chilling, super-controlled voice giving an order she does not understand. Ethan practically collapses into the bossy chair, looking so utterly drained. It hurts to watch. The guy has been on pure survival mode for 4 straight days. Emma whispers that Ethan was totally right about Dom underestimating her. He nods, and she admits that it made her furious, even though playing weak was literally her only survival tactic. Here is a massive truth we all must learn. Being invisible is an incredibly powerful shield, but it still breaks your heart every single time someone looks right through you like you are absolutely nothing. Emma is still stinging from the total disrespect, telling Ethan that Dom looked at her for 20 seconds and dismissed her entire existence. Ethan is super gentle here, asking if she used that against the traitor. She says yes, but admits it took a massive toll on her. She spent 12 rough years trying to stay off the radar, and she had just started, hoping she would not have to be a ghost forever. The look Ethan gives her right then is pure, heartbreaking vulnerability. He softly tells her she does not have to stay invisible for forever. Then Vincent walks back in, and for one split second he is just an exhausted, broken dad instead of a terrifying mafia boss. The lesson we find here is profound. Our deepest scars do not ever have to become our permanent identity. Vincent drops back into his chair, looking heavy, and flat out states that the Dom situation is being handled. No debate, no details. Emma knows better than to ask questions. She totally gets that she stepped into a mafia underworld, but she wants zero part of whatever dark, messy fate Dom is about to face. Then Ethan pushes the absolute limit, asking about Caruso. Vincent snaps a crazy glare at his son, shutting him down instantly. He says Caruso is a separate problem for a separate day, and demands no more solo rogue mission. You can literally feel the 22 years of massive family trauma hanging in that pause. Ethan finally agrees. It teaches us something huge. Setting strict boundaries is the absolute only way to survive the people who claim to love us the most. Think about the people in your own life, guys, and how a crazy crisis can completely rewrite your history. You could literally feel the entire dynamic between a father and son shift in that moment. Their relationship had been trashed for decades, but these past 4 days just rebuilt it stronger than ever. Vincent turns those terrifying eyes to Emma. He tries to speak, but totally chokes up. This is a legendary mob boss who spent his whole life crushing people with his words, and now he is completely speechless. He finally whispers that he does not even have the vocabulary to thank her for everything she did since that alleyway fight. The lesson here is incredibly beautiful. True gratitude rarely finds the perfect words. It simply exists in the overwhelming silence. Emma tries to act like it was no big deal, but Vincent literally raises his hand to stop her. He quietly begs her to just let him say his piece. He tells her she walked into a mafia nightmare that she had absolutely no business being in, and still made every single right call under terrifying pressure. She saved his son, dropped massive truth bombs in his own house, and played a deadly psychological game with a predator. And she did it all with the insane grace of a person who has been overlooked her entire life. It is honestly mind-blowing. It leaves us with a totally vital truth to carry forward. Never mistake a person's quietness for weakness, because the most overlooked people often possess the absolute deadliest kind of strength when it really matters. Vincent's voice is super quiet and completely stripped of his boss persona. He looks right at her and says he is deeply in her debt. Emma just sits there overwhelmed. Her brain flashes back to being a broke 16-year-old in a greasy diner apron, and all those years spent running from danger so she would not have to face how small her world was. She looks right back at the most powerful man in the city and says she only wants one thing. Vincent tells her to name it. She says that when this crazy mafia war is finally over, she wants to know that it is actually over for good. Life teaches us this really painful reality, guys. Living in a constant state of panic and pure survival is not actually living at all. You have to finally stop running if you ever want to be free. Look at this moment, guys. Emma stares the underworld boss dead in the eye and demands he tells her himself when the hit is finally done. She flat out refuses to spend the rest of her life sweating bullets, checking her mirror for some silver sedan hiding in the shadows. And Vincent? He gives his word right then and there. No mob mind games. Just a solid promise from a guy who knows trust is worth more than blood money. Emma grabs her bag and locks eyes with Ethan. The dude looks at her with this incredibly soft expression. Completely dropping his guard, he quietly mutters that he will see her next Thursday, his voice heavy with all the things he cannot say out loud. Because here is the real truth. Genuine safety does not come from loaded weapons or locked doors. It comes from the promises we actually keep. You and I know how rare it is to catch your breath after a massive storm. Ethan just smiles through his bruised face and says he plans to drop by her diner for coffee. Emma stares at this guy who was literally bleeding out in an alley just days ago. His violent reality is a million miles away from her pouring cups of joe. She thinks about the course choices that drag us into wild situations. But she just looks at him and agrees to save him a seat for Thursday. She steps out into the cool night air and slides into the waiting black car. The massive city around her keeps humming along, totally blind to the insane drama that just went down. And that brings us to a beautiful lesson. No matter how violently your world shatters, tomorrow will always offer you a quiet place to sit. Picture this shift in reality. You and I have been there, staring out a window feeling totally disconnected from our own lives. Emma sits in the back of the cab, watching her old life roll past the glass. There is her street, her tired brick apartment building. That cracked front step she meant to complain about for 3 whole months. Even the corner store, where the clerk knows her exact order. Every brick is exactly the way she left it before this Mafia madness started. But the woman looking at the glass? She is a total stranger now. She has no idea who she is supposed to be after surviving all of this. But right then, she realizes something massive. Feeling uncertain is not the same thing as being lost. Sometimes, standing in the thickest fog just means you have finally found the real starting line of your life. The wild truth about not knowing your next move is that your soul is just leveling up faster than your brain can process. Emma steps onto the pavement and climbs those familiar stairs. She turns the key and locks the crazy world outside. Her apartment is dead silent. She drops her coat on the peg and sets her cheap coffee maker to brew. Then she slumps into a kitchen chair, staring hard at her empty palms. Guys, these are the exact same hands that were covered in blood just a few days ago. The very same hands that pressed down desperately to save a dying man. The hands that gripped a gold business card and pinched off a torn artery, while a terrifying voice on the phone ordered her to freeze. Remember this simple truth. Sometimes, our own bare hands hold way more strength and power than we ever give them credit for. But the absolute craziest part? She never ran away. She dropped to her knees in that suffocating alley, dialed the numbers, and held the line. She looked a terrifying boss named Vincent dead in the eyes and refused to blink. She walked straight into the jaws of absolute Mafia chaos and came out unbroken. At 32, Emma realized she is built for something way heavier than pouring diner coffee. The machine sputters to a stop. She pours her cup, letting the heat warm her fingers. She sits in a room that will never feel normal again, and guess what? She is not afraid anymore. The lesson here is massive. When Emma reached into the dark to save a dying man, she found her own courage waiting right there. Sometimes pulling someone else from the edge is the only way we truly save ourselves.